Welcome to an RPG in a Box Basics video tutorial. In this video, we're going to talk about equipment. This is a very commonly asked question. I've already done a very detailed guide on the subject. I'm not going to go that much in depth in this video. This is not going to be a step-by-step how to create equipment. But what this is going to be is this is going to be an explanation of how equipment works in RPG in a Box, because it's one of those things that for a beginner who's coming to RPG in a Box, it can be a very sort of weird way of, a very unusual way of making equipment. So if I explain how it works, then it should make it easier. Okay, so there are multiple aspects to equipment, and they're kind of spread out around the program. So kind of need to talk about them all. Okay, so the first thing you need to know about equipment is there's two parts to it, okay? There's the equipping of the item and the attaching of the object. I'll say that again because it's really important to understand. There's two parts to equipping something. There's the equipping of the item and the attaching of the object. So what do I mean by that? So over here in the model section of RPG in a Box, you'll have your assets. There'll be tiles, objects, and characters. Okay, so what you'll need for your equipment is you'll first of all need an object that represents the item, the thing you're trying to equip. So for example, one of the items in my items editor is a shovel. So let's say I wanted to equip a shovel and I wanted to see the shovel in the player's hand. Then I would need to go to the voxel editor and I would need to create an object that is the shovel, which I haven't actually got at the moment. So let's just quickly throw one of those together. So we'll quickly add an object called shovel, okay? And then what you would do is you would model the shovel. I'm not going to go to any great detail. This is not going to look like a shovel. This is just for example's sake. You also need, as I've already shown, the item for what you're going to equip. These are for your inventory. These are for showing on your model. Okay, anything that's a 3D model is for showing outside in the sort of the game world. The items are for your inventory and for showing on the equipment widget, i.e. this widget here. Okay, so when you drag something from your inventory into one of these slots, you're going to be using the item. Okay, so you'll need to create an item. So in this case, a shovel. So you call it shovel, all of this. But what you need to do is you need to make it equipable. So you need to turn this on, right? And then you need to make, if it's a weapon, so like a sword or something, you turn that on as well. And you set up whether it's a melee weapon, a ranged weapon, how much damage it does, and all of that. Okay? We're not going to go into details of particular types of equipment, just how do you equip something. Okay? And then the most important thing is down here, the object model. You've got one for standard and view model. What do these mean? So if your game is third person, then you're going to want to set it for standard. If your game is first person, then you'll have a view model. So this would be then where you'd set the what the shovel looks like when it's held in your hand in a first person game, right? So you might have a view model set up for that. Okay. In this case, we're going to use standard and we're going to point it at the shovel model. So what this will do is this will tie this item to the shovel model. So when you put this item into the equipment slot, it's going to take the model that you've just paired it with and put it in the actual player's physical hand, i.e. the model. Okay. However, there's something important you need to know about how it does that. Okay, so we'll get to that in a minute. But that's what we're doing at the moment. We're just linking with this setting here. We're linking this model with this item. Okay, so set that here, and that will pair this model with this item. I know I'm saying it over and over, but it's really important that that sinks in, that this is how you tie that model with this item. Because if you don't do that, then they're separate things and they don't know the other one exists. Okay. You can also click this and it will open the voxel editor showing this model, so you can just verify that that is the right model. Okay, great. So that's how you make an equipable item. You make the item, give it a name, make sure equipable is on. If it's a weapon, make sure weapon is on. In this case, we'll turn it off. And then the most important thing is tie it to a model, okay? And then the next important thing is the tag, and this is vital as well, okay? For tags, what you then need to do is you need to go over to the stats editor and find the equipment section, okay? Here, you'll see 3 slot IDs, head, right hand, left hand. We'll talk a little bit more about those in a second. But first of all, let's talk about the right hand. You see that it has weapon turned on and it has item tags allowed and it has the word weapon within that box. Now, these are grayed out. You can't change these because this is the default inbuilt equipment. You can, of course, add your own by giving it a name, so custom. And this will now create a custom equipment, and you can create your own slots, slot 1, slot 2, whatever. We're not going to do that, though. We'll stick with the inbuilt one for now. Yeah, as if you want to know more about equipment, how to make custom equipment and things like that, as I say, I've got a very detailed guide on it, which I will put in the description of this video if you want to study it a bit further. But for now, I just want to quickly go over how equipment works so that, you know, if you just want a sort of quick introduction to it and then you want to go off on your own and mess around with it afterwards, then hopefully this video will help with that. So going back to the default equipment, back to how it works. So let's say we wanted to equip the shovel into the right hand. Well, we kind of got an issue because the shovel isn't really a weapon. We don't want it to be a weapon. We could turn it into a weapon. Because this weapon option is on, we're not going to be able to equip the shovel in this slot because it's not a weapon. So if we wanted to be able to equip it into this slot, we would need to go back to the shovel and make sure that this is on. And now that slot will accept the shovel, okay? Now, what do I mean when I say the slot accepts, doesn't accept? What are these slot IDs for? Well, if we go back to the widget for our equipment, okay, unfortunately, we can't click on these because it's the locked version. So I'm just going to make a copy by clicking this button here. And we'll just call this dupe for now. This will allow me to actually select these so I can show you what they're set to. So if we click on this one, for example, we can see that it's actually set to the right hand slot. These names here, so this one is head, this one is right underscore hand, and this one is left underscore hand. This drop-down list is pointing to this section of the stats editor here, okay? So if you change those, not that you're able to, but if you had set up, let's set up some custom ones again. So we'll create a custom one and we'll call slot 1 or something like that, okay? If we save that and we go back to the UI editor, if we click on, let's say, the head, if we drop this down, now you can see we've actually got slot 1 custom. And that's how you can then change the slots to a custom set of slots, right? Again, way beyond what we're going to cover in this video, because custom equipment takes the default one and makes it just a tiny bit more complicated because then you're sort of creating your own. So for now, we'll just stick with getting equipment working just to begin with so you understand how it works, okay? And we'll go over this one more time at the end afterwards as well, because obviously I know there's a lot to it. But for now, let's just get rid of that custom stuff because we don't want to complicate it, but I'll just show you that that's how it works. So the widget, the equipment widget, is pointing to these 3 slots here in the stats editor, okay? So this one here, the right hand here, the one that has the sword in icon on it, well, they all have the sword icon, but you know, the one where the sword would go. If we look in the slot ID, it's looking at right hand. So if we now go and look at right hand, we can see that it accepts a weapon and the tag that it allows is weapon, okay? Whereas left hand doesn't support a weapon and the tag that it allows is shield, okay? So if we want our shovel to go into the right hand, it needs to be a weapon and it needs to have this tag, weapon, okay? We can't deviate from this word here at all. We have to spell it exactly. So we go back to our shovel item, and in the tags section, we type weapon. So now we can put this item, not the model's separate for the moment, but we can put this item now, let's just save it. Now that we've given it that tag and we've got weapon on, we can now put this item into this slot because it's a weapon and it's got that same tag, which means because this slot is tied to this visual slot in the equipment panel, that means in-game, when you bring up this equipment panel and you drag the shovel from your inventory to this slot, it will accept it. So now the item will go into that slot. Okay? The moment you successfully put an item into the slot, what the game is then going to automatically try to do is to then attach the model that is connected to this item, which is why we set that up here, this setting here, where we tie this model to this item. The moment you successfully put an item from the inventory into a slot, the game is going to try and find the matching item, that's the matching model that's paired with that item, and it's going to try and attach it to the player. How does it do that? It's all to do with the attach points that are on the model. Now, this is, again, super important. When you create attach points for your item and your player, they need to be the same name as the slot that they've gone into. Okay? Otherwise, it won't automatically work. Let me show you what I mean. So we go to our shovel model. We go to the attach point tool. Let's click somewhere on the shovel, like the handle. We need to call this right_hand. Okay? Now, if you're using the bare bones project or one of the example projects, and you've already got a player model, if you open that up in the voxel editor, you'll see that the player already has a right_hand, a left_hand, and a head. Why? Because the default player models should all support, by default, the default equipment setup, right? It supports all of these slots automatically. Obviously, if you're using your own custom setup, where you've got your own equipment configuration and your own slot IDs, then the attach points on your models, both the player and the equipment, will need to be the names of your custom slots, not the names of these slots. Otherwise, it won't work when you use your custom setup. Okay? So now what that means, what's going to happen is when you equip the shovel item into the slot on the equipment widget, it will take the model that's paired with it, in this case, the shovel. It's going to find the attach point on the shovel called right_hand, and it's going to find the attach point on the player with the same attach point name, right_hand, and it's going to attach them. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, the last thing to go over as well is in the player's settings. If you are doing a custom setup, you're going to need to change the equipment widget to one that you've made your own, and you're going to need to change the slot. So if you've got a custom slot config, then you would change this to custom so that the player character actually uses your custom one. Yeah. But for now, this is just a built-in one. Okay. So if we save that, now what you'll also want to do when you're setting up your equipment, obviously, is go to the voxel editor and preview. Let's just save the shovel with the attach point. We go into the Justin model and we preview our attach point by clicking this button. So we want right_hand, shovel, and it also has a right_hand. Click OK. And now we can see the attached shovel. So then you can scale it or whatever. So let's say we select the attach point, and then we can go to the properties. We can say it's too big, so let's make it 0.7. And then we can obviously move it around a bit, rotate it, whatever you want to do, okay? So let's put in his hand like that, okay? So now we've got that, we can click save. So that's how it's going to look when it's attached, okay? So just to reiterate the whole process one more time, just so it's clear. You make a model, which we've done, shovel, and while you're making the model, if you're using the default equipment, i.e. you're not making your own, you need to give it an attach point with the same name as the slot upon which it's going to go into. So if it's going to go into the left hand, then it goes without saying that the model should have an attach point that says left hand, not right _ hand, right? And it needs to be typed exactly. So the attach point on this model needs to actually be written exactly like it is here. So right _ hand, left _ hand, lowercase head, okay? Then you need to make an item that is the inventory version of your equipment. That needs to be turned on as equipable. And if it's a weapon, that needs to be turned on as well. And then you need the model, tying it to the model that you've made that will be attached to the player visually. And then you need to give it a tag that matches what the slot accepts. Okay, that will now mean you can then put this item into your equipment slot. And then as long as you've got the attach point set up properly on the models, that will then automatically show that model on the player. Okay, let's just go into game quickly. So here we are in game. So if I open the management screen, so you can see the inventory, we can see the equipment. This is the bare bones project stuff, right? So currently we don't have anything. So let me just bring down the console and I'll just give myself the shovel. So give item, I believe it's 0002. Okay, so now we've got the shovel item. Okay, this is the 2D item as it exists in our inventory and in a minute in our equipment. Okay, this is not the 3D model. But what we have done behind the scenes is we've told the item editor that this item also has a 3D model connected to it. That's that setting that we said where we put this model and tie it to this item, okay? Now this item has a tag weapon and it's also set to equipable and it is the type weapon. So it means it should fit in this slot because this slot is looking for a weapon with the tag weapon. So we can then put that into there. Now, as soon as I do that, you'll see the shovel should also appear in the hands of the player model, because the moment this slot accepts the item, it will then look up the model that is tied to this item and put the attach points together, the right hand attach points that are on both the player and the item, and put them together automatically. Yeah. Now, forgive the, I didn't do the second frame of the idle animation, which is why it looks a bit weird, but you can see it's attached, right? And in the first frame, you can see is where we put it. I just forgot to put it in the second frame as well. And now you can see the player is carrying the shovel, okay? So that's how to equip things in RPG in a Box, okay? So there is a fair bit to it, so, you know, if you need to go over the video again, I don't blame you. You know, there is, unfortunately, equipment is one of the more complicated things to do in RPG in a Box, but once you understand how it works and all the things that come together to make it work, once you understand it, you'll be off and you can do it all the time. So that's why I wanted to do this video, rather than just walk you through step by step, which I also kind of have done as well. But really the main point of this video was to explain to you how it works. This is how the equipment system works in RPG in a Box. Because if you can understand that and get your head around that, then you know, you won't ever be stuck in another project again having to follow these tutorials, because if you understand it, then you just know how it works, right? So hopefully this video has done that. If you do have any questions, you know, I don't blame you. It is a tricky topic to get your head around. But if you do have any questions, feel free to ask on the Discord. But hopefully this video, and also I will put in the description, in the description of this video, I will put a link to the main video I did on equipment, which is a much deeper dive. So if you're still stuck or you want to have a walkthrough of how to do a custom setup, that will be in the more detailed video, which, as I say, I'll put in the description. So if you want to know a little bit more, you know, if you want further study, then that video will be in the description for this one, okay? But with that said, I'll wrap up this video on equipment. Hope it's been helpful and useful, and stay tuned for the next tutorial.